Frank Collins.
Here.
Colton Brazier. He's here.
You
Right?
might. We're having a roll call. Colton, are you here? Okay.
Matt Keene.
Here.
Marcy Hawley.
Here.
Chad Hilton.
Here.
Herman Jenkins. Michael Keita.
Here.
Rebecca Moss.
Here.
Nita Van Til.
Here.
So first I'd like to welcome the two newest members of the Zoning Commission. They were appointed about 10 days ago, and this is their first official meeting. So it's Colton Brazier and Matt Keene. Did I pronounce your name correctly? No? Brazier, okay. And Matt, you're welcome to sit up closer to the slides. I pushed all those tables back just to get them out of the way. Sorry. Okay. So after two excellent training sessions in January and February, I'd like to invite our favorite trainer to the podium, Dr. Bill Kennedy.
No delay. Get started.
I'm going to sit back here so I'm not on the projector. The screen.
Well, so welcome everybody. This is, of course, on advertising standards and guidelines, as you're all aware. There's a mic here. Didn't realize that. I'll go ahead and use it. So, what we want to do, like in the last session, you remember we started out with some buildings, and we asked what building integrity means, and we asked you to characterize the buildings. You remember one of them was on College Street, and the other was down on Main Street. What we want to do is to take one of those Main Street neighbors and take a look at the signs and ask you how you would characterize the signage for this particular business. So let's look at a few of these pictures first. It's got a projecting sign. It's got signs on the windows, and by the way, the right and the left for the display windows and for the entrance windows are exactly the same. So we're showing you the left display window, and we're also showing you the right-hand entrance window. Then we look at another characteristic or two of this building in looking back on the doors. Commissioners, you'll recognize that these are the new doors that you approved within the past few months. And they really are beautiful doors. And you were very wise to insist that they match the character of the building. So, who wants to start first? How would you characterize the signage on this building? We'll get to that one in here in a few minutes.
There is so much on those windows. I'm not sure what kind of business it is.
Okay.
What are they?
Well,
One says repair shop. But
yeah.
there's just so much.
So what is the name of the business? Can you tell?
Antique Restoration and Design.
Yeah, antique restoration and design, okay. What about the wear shop, the repair shop? Do you think could that be the name of it also? Could be.
Or Restorations by Lisa.
Yeah. I guess it could be that, by Lisa, restorationsbylisa.com. Is it a coffee, tea, and gift shop? Is it a place where you could stop and get a good cup of coffee or tea while you're shopping for gifts?
The repair shop sign looks like it needs to be repaired.
Yes, okay. Yeah, the repair shop. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? And then over on the right, what they specialize in, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Is that right? I counted 10 things they specialize in. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, that's 10 things. Aside from coffee, tea, and gifts. Any other characterizations there?
Just got a lot going on.
A lot
The whole
going
building's
on.
a sign.
Steve, what'd you say?
Just the whole front is a sign, the whole building's a sign.
The whole building is signs. Yeah.
Patriotic, it's rugged.
Oh, it's patriotic too, yeah. Okay. So, looking at the signs, we don't know the name of the shop or the business. Maybe there are multiple businesses in there. So have you stopped to see? I've stopped by a few times, particularly when we were working with them on the doors. Zach and I sort of teamed up and worked on that a little bit about the doors. I didn't see them serving any coffee or tea. I didn't see any gifts. They were doing some repairing, mostly refinishing. I looked them up on their website, and they have some beautiful things on the website that they've restored. Some china figurines and things like that. Really, really very impressive work. Well, so we don't know the name. And also, if you look over on the right, we're seeing porcelain, we're seeing ceramics and wood, we're seeing stemware, we're seeing crystal, pottery, porcelain again, crystal again, twice. Knife sharpening. Oh, they don't have the name of their shop as a knife sharpener, but they're experts in knife sharpening as well as wood. If they carve wood, it'd be good to be a good knife sharpener. But I'm not sure what knife sharpening has to do with porcelain or ceramics or crystal. Knives and crystal. Any other thoughts that you have? How many words do you need to convey a name? How many names do the best businesses, the most significant businesses, most successful businesses have? Anybody? One name to begin with.
Think of Mox.
Yeah, box. How many words do you need to convey a name of a business?
One.
One. Walmart, Toyota, Ford, you name them. I mean, there are lots of them. One word, very successful, very well-known businesses. Two words, Ballad Health. Main Street. Three words, Main Street Cafe, but most of us just refer to it as Main Street. We're going down to Main Street to have lunch. How many words can you read at a glance and comprehend? Particularly if you're in an automobile, but also if you're walking down the street talking with a friend and you don't want to interrupt the conversation, or you're excited about something that you're seeing across the street. How many words can you see and quickly comprehend?
5 to 7.
How many?
5 to 7.
5 to 7, okay. So if you have a sign, you'd like for it to be no more than 5 to 7. I'd like for it to be no more than 3 words. It would seem to me. But it's just too much, isn't it? It's just too much. Did the commission approve this signage? Does anybody know?
I don't remember approving all that verbiage over there to the detail of what the list of what they approved. I don't remember that.
Yeah, okay.
And it takes up, does it take up more space than the allotted on the window?
How much is allotted in the windows?
50%?
50%, right, good. I don't know, you'd have to measure it, I would have to measure it. It's pretty close. Seems to me just eyeballing it. I bet Tom Foster could tell us without measuring.
Put me on the spot, Bill. Sit in the back.
Okay. And this again is presenting, it's a relatively small sign. It's not out of scale compared with the rest of the signs on this part of Main Street. But here again, we're seeing three different messages. We're seeing a patriotic message, we're seeing antique restoration and design. By the way, if you're restoring an antique, are you also designing it? Or has it already been designed? I'm confused about that. Antique restoration and design. Maybe I've just studied these signs too much. Maybe we ought to move on.
I have a question.
Yes.
The duplicate signs, they've been up for over a year plus.
Yep.
Can we not ask them to remove them? What's the legality there?
I think you should. I'm not on the commission, but I really think you should.
We're asking your advice, sir.
Oh, I advise that you do ask them to remove all but just one or two. If you can persuade them that if they first of all can decide on the name of their business, then have a sign saying that. And the guidelines do provide for having a balance in a symmetrical storefront, doesn't it? So if they decide that what the name of their business is, which I really don't know what it is. Oh, and by the way, historic Jonesborough, Tennessee's oldest town. Do we not know that we're in Jonesborough? Do we need to be shown a sign that we're in Jonesborough? Enough. Let's move on. We got other things to do. But it can get to be ridiculous, can't it?
But you know, the inside of that store is just as messy as the signs are.
As the signs are.
Yeah.
That's interesting, an interesting observation. You all heard that, everybody heard that. She says the insides of that store is just as messy as the signs are.
And they were not selling coffee or tea.
And they were not pouring coffee or tea.
They weren't even selling, because I went in to buy coffee.
Well, they have the bags of coffee.
I don't even think that they have a bags of coffee there.
Oh, they, okay.
This was
So,
a few months ago, but yeah.
but they didn't have coffee or tea.
Yeah, well, they definitely were not serving coffee.
Not serving coffee
Yeah.
or tea. Well, let's move on. Here's another situation on the opposite end of the block. 101 East Main Street, Without Organics. One sign, two words. Besides the portable sign that's down on the sidewalk in the lower left picture, when you look at the storefront, can you see the one sign that's on the storefront besides the projecting sign that simply says Without Organics?
Open.
Open. It's in the right-hand display window. It's sitting over there
You have better eyes than I have.
all by its lonesome.
I can see the sign, but I
Oh.
can't read it.
Well, surely that's consistent with the guidelines. Well, let's move on. Continuing to build on the list of documents from section 1, now we've added the advertising standards and guidelines to the previous 7 documents that we've had. And remember that superscript numbers given in the text of the notes are the same as the numbers in the above document numbers. And I apologize to you that I haven't finished the notes for session 2 yet, but I finished the notes for this session 3, and we'll be sending those out on Monday. The idea is to send out the notes after the session and give you a chance to review them and to put them in your collection or throw them away or whatever you want to do with them. But refer to them if you want to later in the future. And then continuing the hierarchy of documents, you remember that the ordinance, chapter 12, business and advertising signs, provides for any sign that's proposed for the historic district should be reviewed and approved by the Historic Zoning Commission. And so chapter 12 is on the same level in the document hierarchy as chapters 5 and 10. So if we look back on this, you're seeing the hierarchy there of the the Jonesborough ordinance of chapter 5 and 10, right up at the top, numbers 2 and 3. In terms of the hierarchy or importance, chapter 12, the sign business and sign ordinance is right up there with 5 and 10, which established historic zoning. And the advertising standards and guidelines are on the same hierarchical level of documents as the building standards and guidelines. And so, continuing with the purposes of the historic zoning, you remember that we've looked at these 9 purposes as they're given to us in chapter 10 of the town ordinance. And we said some of these are more applicable to buildings, and we had those in bold in our last session, and others have more application to the advertising. And so I put in bold the ones that have to do with advertising, and they're to promote the people's educational, cultural, and economic, with the emphasis on economic and general welfare, to stabilize and improve property values, to foster civic pride, to strengthen the economy, and to enhance the town's attractions to residents, tourists. These are the reasons for the advertising standards and guidelines, and to enhance the visual, aesthetic character, and diversity and interest of the town. So the advertising standards and guidelines primarily address the purposes listed here in bold, and they'll be in your notes when you see the notes. Now, they are regulated, the advertising signs are regulated, but they don't have the same degree of protection or preservation as the ones that are underlined here, in which the building standards and guidelines we covered in the last session really have to do with the architectural and cultural aspects and the design aspects of the buildings and sites themselves, and also have to do with any exterior alterations and demolition. So the standards and guidelines for advertising were first adopted in 1992. So they've been around for a few decades. The Jonesborough advertising standards and guidelines have had a lot of work put into them, and they need more work put into them. They've been revised and amended 7 times to get us to the 2019 version, which is now the current version. And the Commission plans on working on them again and trying to upgrade them again. So why so many different versions and amendments? Far more than the building standards and guidelines. Well, the changes have been needed to keep up with the dynamic growth of business and the activities in the historic Central Business District. That's continued to grow and continue to build and be very dynamic as the decades have gone by. Certain basic observations and principles have persisted through those changes, though, and those have been incorporated into each of the 7 versions, or now 6 versions, a total of 8 versions, including the 1992, all through the years. And we'll be looking at those in just a minute. And those basics are found in the introductions and in the stated purposes and intents. And they're the same in most of the advertising standards and guideline versions. It's interesting to go through the old ones, which I did in preparation for this, and particularly to go back to the 1992 version and compare it with the 2019 version. It was very interesting. So the advertising standards and guideline introductions from 1992 through 2019 combined have these following observations. First of all, that many Jonesborough businesses would not be here today were it not for the effectiveness of historic preservation since about 1970. And many of the Jonesborough's historic commercial buildings would not have survived intact without the prosperity of the businesses housed in them. Those were two observations made in 1992, and they still hold today, of course. Business and historic preservation are mutually beneficial and, in a way, mutually dependent on each other here in our historic central business district. When you look at the older central business districts in many cities, including the ones close to us, you see a lot of deterioration that you just don't see anymore in Jonesborough. And the reason I say anymore is because we did reach a point in the 1960s when it was declining quite a bit in the central business district. Well, consumers are drawn by Jonesborough's unusual and authentic historic atmosphere. Commercial messages for the town's businesses should contribute to that atmosphere. That was put in 1992 and reworded a little, tweaked a little bit the same idea in 2019 in all 8 of the versions of the standards and guidelines for advertising. Then the balance between the advertising needs of business and the needs for survival of the character of historic Jonesborough is delicate and fragile. And that observation has continued all through the total of 8 versions of our standards and guidelines for advertising. And then the advertising standards themselves, I think I skipped. Okay, there's a hierarchy within the advertising standards and guidelines that's parallel to the document hierarchy. First of all, within the standards and guidelines, we have the general purposes of historic zoning. And then we have an introduction to the advertising standards and guidelines. And then there's a section entitled Purpose and Intent of the advertising standards and guidelines. Then we have the standards themselves in the advertising standards and guidelines, and then we have the guidelines. In the advertising standards, standards 1 through 6 focus on the importance of balancing the advertising needs of business with the preservation of the character of historic Jonesborough. So we've got 6 standards that focus on that out of a total of 9 standards. Standards 1 through 6, therefore, are very important, even though they're primarily conceptual. They're not really very concrete. Standards 7 and 8 are much more concrete. So if we think about what those standards are, here's what standards 1 through 6 deal with. Standard number 1 is about promoting business. Standard number 2 is the compatibility of the signage with the style and the historic period of the building where the signage is mounted. Signs and other forms of advertising must relate to, rather than obscure, clutter, or disrupt design features of buildings and parts of buildings. The installation of advertising material must not physically or irreversibly alter or damage buildings or parts of buildings. Also, standard 5 is advertising designs and techniques should reflect the rich diversity of style and the continuum of history seen in Jonesborough streetscape. Originality, creativity, and diversification should be encouraged. Standard 5. And then standard 6 is, while satisfying the legitimate needs of commerce, advertising should not clutter the streetscape, or we might say the elevation of a particular building, and should not interfere with views of buildings or other signs. And then standards 7 and 8 are much more concrete. They have to do with portable signs and exterior furnishings. 8 has to do with the fact that approval of any sign will terminate with any changes or alterations or locations of the previously approved sign, but there's no automatic expiration date for any approved sign. In other words, once it's approved, you can, as long as you keep that sign in the same location, it doesn't have to be brought back for reapproval. And then number 9 is all advertising messages and signs must conform with the ordinance, with Chapter 12, Business and Advertising Signs, of Chapter 11. So the advertising guidelines. First of all, sections 1 through 5 are concerned with fixed signs. Section 6 covers the requirements of portable signs and exterior furnishings. Portable signs and exterior furnishings require outdoor use permits. That's very important. And if you just stick things out and you're a business owner and you stick things out on the sidewalk without having an outdoor use permit, then you may hear from our friendly building inspector back here. And then in section 7, it describes the requirements for signs used to indicate whether a business is open or closed, and we commonly refer simply to those signs as open signs. And then sections 6 and 7 have introductions that are tailored to their respective sections, and those introductions are very important. And we'll say a little bit more about those in just a moment, but section 6, as I just mentioned, covers the requirements for portable signs and exterior furnishings. And 7, of course, open signs. So they have their own introductions, and it's important to take a look at those. So here's some important things that have occurred to me to remember from the advertising guidelines. And these are kind of like the tips that I gave you in the building standards and guidelines in our last session. First of all, in section 1, size and position of fixed signs. And by the way, these things that I've chosen to mention to you briefly tonight are things that the Commission commonly encounters. So that's another basis for my selecting them. First of all, in section 1.1, the size and position of the sign, it has to be well suited both for the building features and the building itself. And that guideline says that the Commission reserves the right to deny a sign that, in the opinion of the majority of the commissioners in a particular meeting, if the sign is out of proportion to features, important features of the building, even though it may pass muster concerning its relationship to the size of the building itself, the Commission may deny that sign. And I think that's an important feature, an important part of the guideline. And then section 1.2 addresses reasonable legibility. Where's the audience for the sign? Is the person that you want to have read the sign a pedestrian or in an automobile? Or is the person across the street? Projecting signs can address both audiences. Signs on windows can, under certain circumstances, address both audiences. But if you're in an automobile, chances are good you'll notice a projecting sign better than you will a sign in the window. But that also can depend on contrast within the sign itself. So those are variables, but they need to be looked at. And then in section 1.3, the maximum size, no larger than 36 square feet for a building-mounted sign in the business district. Now, the sign that you all approved in the last meeting for Jackson Prime, we determined that that was well within the size of 36 square feet. I think it turned out to be 18 square feet or something like that. What was it, Tom?
22 or 23, I can't remember.
Can't remember, but it's something that was well within. It was well within the range, and it's going to be an easily seen sign. It's a beautiful sign. But then in section 1.5, the clearance below projecting sign. The projecting sign bottom must be at least 7.5 feet above ground. That means above the alley pavement if it's over an alley, or above the sidewalk, or whatever the ground is below it. And then cluttering of individual signs. How many words are needed to convey the message? Obviously, in 119 West Main Street, East Main Street, excuse me, the sign that we were just looking at, the covey of signs, collection of signs, that's obviously very cluttered. Usually, the fewer the words, the better, as we were saying a while ago. One word for the name of a business or a manufacturer, 2 or 3 words for the name of a business. If you get much more than 3 words for the name of a business, you're probably hurting as far as recognition. And in the example that we just looked at, if you've got 4 possible names of the business, you really are hurting. And that's really unfortunate. And it should not be approved. Remember that we're a service commission, and the commission acts as a resource. So if someone brings something like that, 119 East Main Street, to the commission really should be a counselor and a resource as well as denying. And I hope that the commission did not approve all of those signs. Well, then the number of fixed signs. How many signs does it take? McLeod decided he only needed 1. 1 for each audience? Maybe. Usually the fewer the number of signs, the better. What happens to me, and I don't know whether this happens to you or not, but you can think about this. If I look at a place that has too many signs, I don't see any of them. I just blank that out of my comprehension. I mean, I may glance at the building, but if it's just covered with signs, or if it's got too many signs, I find myself just not paying any attention to any of them. I don't know what any of them say. And so that person in advertising that business has not gotten through to me at all. Well, then, Section 3, lettering, accessories, and colors. Sign accessories. It's been fascinating through the years being on the Historic Zoning Commission. And I was on it for 40 years. And of course, I'm still thinking a lot about it. You begin to see businesses when they get sick. Some of the businesses never really, a few of the businesses just have never really caught on. They've never gained good health. But it's interesting to see what a business does when it begins to get sick. And usually as temporary signs, what they do are temporary trinkets. They begin to emphasize attention-getting sign accessories. And this is when you see girly gigs and banners that flash and things like that on signs. And this is when you begin to see sale after sale after sale of various types in rather bold letters. If you're a business person, keep in mind that you may be conveying desperation. Your business may really be sick if you've got to emphasize a lot of that kind of thing. And maybe you need to really take stock in a deeper way, because you may be about ready to go out unless you change the way you're doing things. Well, then in Section 4, construction materials, bounty, and quality. Modern artificial materials disguised as traditional materials can be ideal for signs, even though not for buildings. And Tom Foster has helped us a lot in introducing us to some wonderful modern materials that are perfect for signs and that imitate older materials, but are much more durable for the weather and exposure of signage than would need to be if they were used on buildings. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. And Tom helped us years ago, I don't know if you remember this, Tom, but you helped us years ago make up a list of some of those modern materials. So you'll see that in section 4.3 in your guidelines. And then 4.8, we emphasized this last session. In masonry buildings, penetration of bricks can weaken the structural integrity of the building over time. And I showed you some really extreme examples of that in the last session. Within lighting, the section 5.3, internal lamination, that should be internal illumination. That's an error. Internal illumination is not permitted. This guideline was written when backlighted acrylic panel signs were still common, and that was its intent. Now, the commission plans to evaluate and possibly revise Section 5 lighting after completing these 4 current training sessions. And I think the move is if I'm reading some of you on the Historic Zoning Commission, I think the movement is toward really doing more than just a section on lighting, working on more than that in your advertising standards and guidelines. I really think, as I've gone through them and studied them again, I think they all need work again. I think we're ready for another version. But anyway, that's why 5.3 was written. We have only one acrylic panel that's backlit left in the historic district that I have been able to think of. And any of you know what that sign is? Anybody?
The Christian church.
Christian church.
The Presbyterian church, right?
Yeah. It's a Christian church, their sign. Their sign, it was grandfathered in, and their sign also, I think, in a way comically shows a gambrel roof outline rather than a Gothic roof, which is what their building is. So that sign is also not really consistent with the style of the building. But it was grandfathered in. It's been there since I can remember. It never has worn out. Portable signs and exterior furnishings. That's a bone of contention and has been all through the years. Reading and remembering the benefits and the limitations of portable signs given in the introduction on page 15 will help steer you to an effective use of section 16 portable signs and exterior furnishing guidelines. Plastic as sign material is inappropriate downtown. That's a direct quote from that introduction. The same applies to the exterior furnishings. And plastic is covered in exterior furnishings and prohibited in section 6A.6 and 7. Note on the top of page 16 that standards 1 through 8 and guidelines section 2, 3, and 4 apply to portable signs. So rather than repeating those, they just apply to portable signs. And then 6A.1, the size and range of portable signs. For me, I'm accustomed to thinking about something as being 28 by 18 rather than as being 28 to 48 tall by 18 to 28 wide, which is the way it's expressed in the guidelines. So that's just my little twerk there. I just wrote into my copy of the guidelines when I was on the commission, 28 by 18 at least, and no larger than 48 by 28. Now that has to do with not blocking the movement of pedestrians on the sidewalk. It also has to do with stability of the sign if someone happens to bump into the sign. Then 16D3 and 5, outdoor use permit required. portable signs and exterior furnishings that are not entirely on private property require an outdoor use permit from Town Hall. There are 2 properties, maybe 3, that I can think of in which the property owner also owns a sidewalk. If you're one of those property owners, and I think Herman is, you're very fortunate that the town has never insisted on your maintaining the sidewalk, because the sidewalk is a public right-of-way. If I were you, I would have an outdoor use permit, even if I didn't need one, because you're cooperating that way with the town, and you're right in line with the safety concerns and features of the town. And that protects you as the property owner as well as the town. Well, Jonesborough didn't always look like it does today. These are some pictures that I took back in the 1970s. This one probably is mid-70s. Most of these are probably mid-70s. Notice the wires above the street, concrete sidewalks, the condition of White's Auto Parts. It was undergoing repair at the time, really desperately needed. Notice the signs. Do you think you would approve those commissioners today? Don't think so. I don't think so either. And then here's the next building as you sort of head west on Main Street in the 1970s. Not many signs to worry about. Well, there wasn't much business going on, so you didn't need very many signs. You know, a couple of those stores in there, at least one of them that I'm looking at, is vacant. A couple of doors there look like they are open or half open. Webb's Gemstones is there to the right. He had at least 3 locations that I remember, and he kept moving up. He got better locations as time went by. This location flooded back then. You see the peeling paint down close to the sidewalk? And since then, we've had 3 stages of flood mitigation. Things have improved a whole lot, folks, in the past 50 years. The shoe shop over there to the left stayed around and stayed around for a long, long time, for decades. Finally just left very recently. But the town didn't look so good, and the town was not prosperous. There were plenty of parking places, because there just wasn't that much going on. But it was a highway back then. 11E had been built through as a 4-lane in the 1950s. So by the 1970s, there were still a lot of people who wanted to go up and down Main Street, kind of like there is today, but it's a lot calmer today than it used to be. And not only do you see the poles for the lines, telephone lines, power lines, and the modern types of street lights above and wires above, but lots of signs, big signs. And here was this group of buildings, and about the only thing we could figure, these signs were put up in the 1940s, I think. Anybody know a more precise date? They were certainly here when I came, and in fact, this is one of my photographs. We figured they had to have been modeled after the Wild West movies that were popular at the time and had become popular in the 1920s. But so far as I can tell and have been able to determine since then, they really don't have any relationship with Jonesborough's history, with the local history. And so, we were thrilled to death when they came down. They gradually came down, and what we began to discover when they came down, and particularly when we took that panel off of the top of that section there to the west of the antique mart, was some beautiful things about the buildings that we just had no idea were there. And so we're enjoying the buildings a lot more today. And the signs give us a balance between the beauty of the buildings and the historic character of the buildings and the needs for business to a much greater extent than was given to us back then. And now, of course, the wires have been put under the ground, the poles are no longer there, the sidewalks are brick, the curbs are stone, and we have trees planted in wonderful places along Main Street. A lot has improved since 1970, when historic zoning was passed and established. 1975 was when they put the lines under the ground and got rid of a lot of the concrete sidewalks and some of the other unsightly features that were there. So we've made a lot of progress in that period of time. Now, we have, thanks to Frank, a collection here in the computer of all of the signs in the central business district, or almost all of them, in the central business district that Frank just took last week, just made last week and collected up. So I wonder if any of you have any signs in the amount of time that we've got left that you'd like for us to look at together and characterize and see what we think about it. Yes?
I have a question that came up last meeting, in the area, close there. You know, we're getting so many businesses that are going upstairs
Yes.
now, so there's like several buildings that have downstairs business, and then there's two businesses upstairs. And how do they get their sign out front, on the front of the building, so that everybody knows they're upstairs without, and then they put their sandwich board out. So you have 3 businesses in their building that have 3 or 4 sandwich boards out.
Frank? Come on up. Let's look at 111 East Main Street. Yeah, I think 111 East Main Street has an example. Maybe Frank captured that.
We've got an example. It's part of our regular business tonight, where
Yes,
multiple signs will be shown. So
yes,
we'll save
okay,
that one for later, but I'll show you this one.
okay. Yeah, see if you've got 111 West Main Street, see if you captured those signs. 111 East Main Street, I'm sorry. I said west, it's East Main Street. Try one over. 111. That's 113, 115. Okay,
There's an example of it.
well, there you go. But that's 2 signs. Now, 111 has signs, I think it's 111 has signs mounted on the building. That's a good example. Those are 2. Try that one, try 111. There in the background to the left,
You want to zoom in on this one?
you may not have captured it. The background to the left,
Are you talking about to the left there?
yeah,
That's
If
where
that's
the
on the
art
agenda
gallery
tonight.
is, and,
yeah.
there'll be an art gallery downstairs, an art gallery upstairs, and
And a beauty shop.
Anyway, 111, there we go. There you are. That's 2 of them right there. Now, if you back up this way a little bit, I think you'll find a composite sign there too. But the easy answer to the question is that it ends up being a composite sign. 2 signs in one. And that's 2 signs in one right there. Right. Richard Phillips, attorney at law, Griffin Art Gallery. And also, if you think about Fox Street, at 101 Fox Street, there is a composite sign on the side of that building facing Main Street. And if you think of other composite signs around, that's the answer to it, is composite signs. Anybody know of any other composite signs? But those are two that come to mind. Anybody else? Signs you'd like to look at?
Yeah, there's Fox Street.
Yeah, there you go. That sign is in need of attention, of course, and revision, because two of those shop owners have left. But Paul's Pins and Odds and Ends is still up there in that picture.
And why are they advertising Tennessee Hills?
Yeah, it's not in that building.
Not even in the building, it's across the railroad track.
Yeah, we originally set that sign up for listing businesses in that building alone. So that's been changed with time. Now that the building is under new ownership, they may want to change it back to reflecting only businesses in that building, but also they may want a new sign. Or they may feel like they don't need a sign there. Because they're going to be having the coffee shop there. Numa Coffee is coming in there in that space that now is looking white. I think that's the space they're coming into. And then the Opossum's Tail plans to expand toward Main Street, where the Ghost People were. That's another business. I can't remember the name of the business, but so I just refer to them as the Ghost People.
Escape room.
Paranormal people. And I don't know what's going to happen to the shop there on the right. Anybody know what's coming there with that plans?
They told me they had a potential tenant, but they weren't revealing who it was yet, so
Oh, okay.
should be soon.
So they're negotiating. Well, what time is it?
5 to 7.
What?
5 to 7.
5 till 7, okay?
So we've got more time to talk. Or we've got one business owner that's going to be coming at 7:15 who's on the agenda, but we can start the meeting because we have some of the representation here already.
There's one thing that I had mentioned in the notes, and the notes should go out on Monday. If Brandy has time to send them, I've completed the notes. So you should get them on Monday by email. But going back to the hierarchy, I didn't mention a while ago that when you're working with the guidelines, commissioners, and this is true for business owners and property owners also, when you're working with the guidelines, usually we focus most on the guidelines, but go up to the standards. And if you find a standard that reinforces the guideline that you're using, that you think is consistent with the application, that just gives you more support for the guideline. And so forth as you go up the hierarchy of documents. And that's the reason that I presented the documents in the hierarchy. If you've got something that, a proposal of some kind that you think is consistent with the state enabling legislation, you go all the way up to the state enabling legislation, all the way up through the ordinances that apply, as well as the bylaws of the commission and the policies and procedures of the commission. The higher up you go, the stronger the support for the selected applicable guideline. So just have that in mind. That's something that we have overlooked in the past. Can be very helpful.
I have a non-related kind of question. When we were talking about these multiple businesses in the taller buildings, have they always been multiple businesses in those buildings, or were they residential at the top and?
Traditionally, they were residential,
Okay.
but I've been aware of second floor businesses and offices going way back into the 19th century too, and looking at the history.
In that building, only the top floor was residential, and there were multiple businesses on the second floor. There were several different law offices, and there was a real estate office up there. But they just had the law office on the door.
One of the buildings
That's interesting.
had, photography years and years ago. One of the upper floors was a photography place.
Yeah.
So when the buildings were built, were they built with that kind of thought in mind, that there'd be several businesses in
But
that?
traditionally, going back even to the 18th century, before Jonesborough was building two-story buildings in other places, residences were on top. If you had a building owner, he lived on top, and he and his family lived in the second floor, and the business was on the ground floor. Yeah, in many situations.
And also in this building, there was a meeting hall, an opera,
Yes,
the Opera House.
Lamson Hall, it was known as, built in the 1870s. Yeah, Lamson Hall. Yeah, Steve.
So, Bill, from Frank's photos, we saw several examples of plastic signs, direct things that were in your presentation that are not allowed.
Right.
I'm assuming they never went through historic zoning to get those approved.
No, I think they never went through.
So
And
what is, like you mentioned, the building inspector, is that the only recourse to eliminate signs that businesses put up that aren't approved?
we've got work to do on enforcement. Lots of big work to do on enforcement. Frank, may want to say something?
Well, one of the things we'll be exploring after the training, we'll have the training session in April, and then in May, when we go over the advertising standards and guidelines, one will be coming up with something that addresses the sandwich boards to make them more uniform. We'll get everyone's input, and we want to get the business community's input, and try to come up with something that's more fitting for the historic district. So you don't want to have a nice wooden sign with a chalkboard in one place and then have something that's plastic, which...
The sandwich boards are one example. We've got plastic chairs, we have Star Wars characters, we have, how are they any benefit to our town? Anything that, brings the value down?
Yeah, we need to talk to the business owners and let them know. Some of them are clearly not allowed on the guidelines, and they were never presented
So
to us.
is that the responsibility of the historic zone, or is that the responsibility of the town?
Both.
Both,
Yeah.
okay. Is it the
But
responsibility of?
since we're aware of some issues, we need to, as a historic zoning commission, come up with
In
a
the
plan
guidelines,
to
there's
address
very
these.
little about,
Mhm.
enforcement. The only thing it mentions for enforcement is the town.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know if the historic zoning commission had authority to do that.
As a historic zoning commission, we can go out and talk to the business owners, and most of them would be very receptive and say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that wasn't allowed, I'll get a different sign. And then, but I think it would be good for us as a zoning commission to come up with something that we feel is appropriate as a sandwich board, rather than like going out and saying, we don't approve of this one, and then they come up with something else that maybe it's not something that would work.
Say do
either.
this,
Yeah.
as opposed to don't do that.
Yeah, so, and we're getting real close to doing that, so it's not gonna be long.
But I just had, in order to put a sandwich board out there in the first place,
Mhm.
do they need approval?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Outdoor use.
and we would not have approved a plastic sign, that's just not in the guidelines.
Do you want to show the Chester Inn sign? That's a good example of a chalk sign.
See if I have it. We have several good examples.
Mhm.
Good example of bad signs.
What's the address?
116.
116.
Mhm.
Is it 116?
Yes, west.
I don't think I
116,
took the
West Main.
pictures while your sign was out, so
Oh, darn.
that sign,
Well,
that's the state historic site. Yeah, it's not out right
darn.
now. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, do you have any other questions about advertising standards and guidelines for Dr. Kennedy? Okay, so we'll move right into the regular meeting.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
one more,
questions?
just real quick. So,
Thank
sorry.
you.
One more, real quick.
Oh,
Do window displays, do they fall under advertising? Or is that, once it's beyond the glass on the other side of the window, is that a free-for-all? You can do anything you want?
We've actually got that as one of our topics we're going to talk about, like string lights that are projecting light outside of the window that are inside. That's something that we could address. If it's something behind the window that's not projecting out, I don't believe that we would have a lot of influence. Like an open sign that was neon and flashing, that would be something we could address, but
That'd
not,
be kind of a sign or something,
yeah.
not just a display or something. In other words, if you take a Star Wars character and you move it from the thing, you put it behind the glass and light it up with big flashing lights. Not much
Well, if
about
it's
that.
flashing outside of the window, that's something
Okay.
we can talk about. But you've also got to recognize we've got Christmas shops in the town, like Gabriel's
Right.
Christmas. You want to look into the store and see back in the back of the store, they have a Christmas tree that's lit up, and that's nice. But we don't want something where string lights are flashing and showing out on the street. But it's something that we have on our plate. It's again something we moved to May to do after the training sessions.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
So tonight, the regular business is all related to advertising. So it's going to be very appropriate to what we've just gone over tonight. So the first item we have is 109 East Main Street, and it's the request to approve a Salon 5 sign design and placement. So Tom, do you want to?
Well, in Austin's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Papers, fine.
I'm not on the commission, so I can get home. I'll see you.
Yeah, bring up one before. Tom saying?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Somebody else did it.
I don't remember, so you have to confirm it.
Do we need to take a break before we start? Is everyone okay? Just want to. I think we're okay.
Okay. Anybody else I missed? It's a minute.
See if we present. Okay, so state your name, the address you're representing, and then what your proposal is.
My name is Austin Brown. I'm proposing the redo of all three signs in order to fit to permitting standards. Salon B will be at the top of 109 East Main Street, that is 201C. In order to fit that clearance of 7.5 feet, we had to downsize each of the existing tenants to add the Salon B up top to have the order of their occupancy at that location. So Salon B at the top, Griffin Art Gallery in the middle, and Richard Phillips at the bottom.
Yes.
And that's going to be refacing both existing sides of the signs there.
So did you have to take the hanger up, or is the hanger going to stay where it is?
The hanger is going to remain where it's at, and that was the reason why we had to downsize the two existing in order to fit within the permitted range.
When you say the permitting range,
about 7.5 feet below the bottom one?
Yes, it's well over.
And where is the little art shops, the 109, and where is their sign?
So that is actually to another, were you able to touch on that today?
That's gonna be the second one. It's not.
I know, I just want to see what it's going to look like with 3 signs down and 1 sign hanging out.
Okay.
Let me,
I'm not sure if the image is on this computer yet.
Here is where the current signs are. This was the new McCollum sign, and this will be the next item that we'll discuss after this one. That one, the gallery is going to replace, is going to be there, and it's over this door. And then over this door, it's going to be 3 signs instead of being just the 2.
I understand that.
So the 3 signs are gonna be right at the entrance where they need to go up the stairs.
Yes.
Yes.
Right above the doorway.
And I went out there today and measured it, and it was just a little over 8 feet, so it does meet the settlement effect. Okay, any questions about the 3 sign proposal?
What's the material that you're utilizing?
It's an ACM panel with vinyl over top of that, sandwiched in between. So the hanger is in the middle, the ACM on each side with vinyl covering.
Do you need me to show any other photos?
Also, I'm guessing that's the same material that those signs are today.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Exactly.
Before you went down to the smaller size, what was the size?
Right off the bat, there were slight differences due to the shapes. They were in the range of, I believe, about 24 inches apiece, so about 2 foot.
Yeah, I measured the lower one today. It was 2 feet.
2 feet, yes.
Okay, any questions about the signs or any further discussion?
I think that we accept the signs as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
Great.
Oh.
Hey, Frank. All right, Frank?
Yes.
Who's second?
Rebecca seconded.
Thank you.
You seconded, right? Okay. Oh. Sent one over with the actual design. sent that one over today, didn't you?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. Is that big enough?
Yes, so on the right side of the image, that is a window decal that we are not working on currently. We are just looking at the proposed sign on the left there. That will be replacing the previous tenants of Numa Coffee, and all we will be doing for this one is replacing the vinyl decal over top of the existing ACM panel that was previously on the last image of that blank black circle. That one, as you see, measures the 2 foot, 5.5 inch, both sides.
Are you also seeking,
No,
approval for that with a clear background?
eventually, that did not, we didn't get that in the works, and I meant to send you the proof with just the image of the hanging sign. So,
So ignore the right side. Just
I didn't hear you.
ignore the right side of
Correct.
the door. Just
That's
ignore
right,
that.
yes.
Okay.
Just the projection sign.
Michelle mentioned earlier, is it gonna be this design, and just instead of being white, it would be clear, you would see the window?
Exactly that. Yes, it will be graphics only once we get to that.
So if that's exactly what it is, with a window background instead of the white background,
Yes.
we could probably prove that now, or discuss it at
If
least.
that's the case, that'd be great.
Yeah. Can everyone see those, or do I need to blow it up a little bigger?
So we're not even dealing with the thing that's over the door. Is that correct?
Actually, if you want to approve it tonight, they do want to have this over the door, but it's not going to be white. It's just going to be this over glass, so they can have light shine in.
So the gallery will not be black,
The left
probably.
side photo there, you can see the reflection of the old Newman Coffee above the door. That's exactly what it would look like.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
So-
Yes.
just showing that. So it gives you an idea of just the lettering and the color.
And also, we noticed in this slide, the law office has a thing on the, over the door. Now, is that a redundant sign?
It's already there.
That's not what I'm asking.
Well, it would be double signs. I understand what you're saying.
That was approved sometime back when we did the law office.
Yeah, but you didn't have the hanging sign at the time.
I do not remember that, to be honest with you. I thought we looked at it all at the same time, but I don't remember.
I think what's on the door is more intrusive than the sign above. Whatever those papers are, they're in the individual door windows. I don't know what those are.
So if we want to just talk about this one tonight, we can, and then have them come back and show that, what that would look like with a clear background instead of a white background. Or if we wanted to approve it based on that being on a clear background like this is over here, we can do that. So that's up to the zoning commission members to decide.
I make a motion to approve as presented with the addition of clear sign over the door.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion?
I have a
Questions?
question.
Yes.
Are the colors considered when approving the sign coordinating with the building design?
She's gonna have an orange bench out front.
We can consider that.
Mustard.
We've approved a variety of colors in the past, but yes, we can consider that if we don't feel it's appropriate for a particular building. That's something we could discuss. Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion?
Oh, well, it just looks like the Numa Coffee sign really complements the coloring. So the gallery, petite, it's more contrasting in my mind. But I'm just wondering, would it be possible to use a different background for the circle gallery instead of the white? I know that on the door there won't be it'll be transparent. But of course, that's a business plan. If that's their logo and that's their coloring they want to use.
That wasn't the case as far as what I was given as far as the salon logo.
Okay.
My only concern would be if the glass is transparent and you have black on glass, it might be harder or more difficult to see than white for the transparency. So if approved, if both are approved, then we might have problems actually later on when we see it as transparent.
We also have to keep in mind too that we need to keep with our standards, but we need to do everything we can to help these businesses. Use some color on the signage would let them know that it's paint. Or something different.
And it is an art gallery, so art galleries would have color, so it's not, like a law office might not be as colorful.
That most likely would be changed to white to have that stand off on the see-through.
Or potentially lesser.
Or that, yes.
It's my thing, you can change the
Oh,
color of the
Okay.
gallery.
Okay.
So you would tend to go to a,
Well, I didn't even think about that,
to
so.
a color, that's been kind of your color, that's.
Yeah, so if you wanna change, we can talk tomorrow,
Just figuring.
but the black can be changed for the
Just
rest of the.
something that's gonna show up.
Yes, you're right. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, I didn't.
So, and whichever color fits your business and your building well, is, yeah, okay. Just to cost one pick of one, seems like it was.
Would you want us to approve more than one color for the sign? Is that what we're looking for now, or is
I
that?
think, Rebecca, if it's okay, can we modify to say clear with the lettering adjusted to a lighter color that matches the environment?
It's visible, the most visible.
Unless the lettering was outlined on one side, each letter.
Okay, so we've modified the motion, and what is the motion now?
Oh, what that say? I said approve as presented with the addition of adding the over door window, with a possible color change to make that lettering show up more on the window itself.
Yeah. So the left is presented, the
Yeah, the
right
clear window.
clear with a lighter color lettering that will correspond to the environment
Okay.
of the building.
And the other concern was the white background of the circular sign. Is that what you stated, or is that not a concern?
No, I'm saying that should stay. I don't
That's okay.
No, it was a question,
Mhm.
but it wasn't a concern.
Okay. So we now have a new motion. Do we have a second? Second. It's modified. Okay, any discussion about the new motion with the addition? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
I think it's nice that you can use a sign that was already there. Well, that's recyclable.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
She has paperwork for you to sign.
Get it signed. Say what? Get it signed.
Exactly.
Okay, and staying with 109 East Main Street. And this is a separate item for a sandwich board. Michelle, do you want to present that one? So if you state your name and your address again.
Oh, Michelle, read this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, Michelle Hamilton, 109, East Main, Unit 101. It's a wooden sign with a chalkboard. It matches my bench, which is mustard. And it's the same size as the other two ones that are there. So that's why I measured it, so. Yeah, the other Griffith Art Gallery in the Ham Place.
So was your bench that color? Or was it more like?
You know,
a
it's hard to
yellow?
tell online,
No.
but when I got it, it was definitely more yellow than I thought. But, now if it's a problem, I can paint it black, because I know somebody said black. I just ordered it online.
So is your bench mustard and this is yellow?
My bench is more yellow than I thought. It's still classified as mustard, but they're pretty
A
close.
little more to French's mustard than Dijon.
I have a picture of the bench if you want to bring it up.
Okay.
It's almost a show.
Yeah, the bench is,
It's from last week.
yeah, it looks more orange in there, but it's actually a little bit more yellow. But you guys already approved this, and if this clashes, then I can paint that black. It's not a big deal. But I like the color it is, but it's up to you guys. Should I start singing?
Any further questions about?
One of the problems I see down the road is that, I don't know how many businesses are in that building. Is everyone gonna have a board outside? That's something that I think we're
No.
gonna address.
Right now, there's only two. The him and the other art gallery has one.
Well, the beauty shop hadn't opened yet,
They have everything, and I don't know if she has, gonna have a sale sign.
but she will.
Well, I want to get her first.
So that could be a problem, I'm saying. We have a problem downtown with multiple board signs, it's in optical boards.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if you wanna put money in it, and then all of a sudden we change the regulation rules.
Well, but that would apply to everybody?
Apply to everybody?
Yeah, that has a sign or sign up front.
It should.
I think we
Yeah.
got
Here's a
to do
picture of
something.
the business. The hemp shop is right here. They have their door, and they have signs in front of their door. This is her business. It's this door, and it would have a sign. And then here's where three businesses are upstairs that we approved the sign for earlier. And if any of them wanted a sign, it would be in front of their door. So
Well, the attorney doesn't have a sign. So,
You may have a board special.
Now, one of the things that, well, we might consider is, are these sandwich boards to catch people's eye walking down the sidewalk or
Yeah.
driving down the street?
T at McLeod says he sits outside and watches people, and he says the sound signs are so important because they kind of go,
Yeah,
because I watch people do it, they do not look in.
yeah. Yes. The only other solution that we can have maybe down the road is to move it closer to the street in between the trees.
That's fine.
People could see it. Well, of course, this is just.
But it's pretty empty there, and my bench is pretty small, so.
I mean, I think that, the placement may be something that we're addressing after
Yeah.
all the training and stuff like that.
Yeah,
to
I'm
standardize the
easy
placement.
wherever you want to put it.
Um,
And then, so I'll put a little arrow on top that says art, and hopefully people know art.
Some of the signs that we've talked about, that we're going to talk more about in May, are the ones that are all plastic or the ones that are white with dry erase.
And some are bigger than others, I've noticed.
Yeah. So we may be talking about a standard size. There's another one next to yours, I believe, with the hemp shop, it's the same wood.
It's the same size too.
It's just got a green color.
Right.
But it's chalkboard and it's wood.
Yeah, we're three on chalkboard, I think.
Yes.
So,
So I believe that's what we would be looking for when we discuss this in May, probably wood signs that have chalkboards rather than these plastic and these white dry erase boards. So I believe even when we talk about our standards in May, it would still fall under the standards and existing.
The other thing that is possible to talk about would be if the city to furnish us a standard sign that everybody would use. And it would stay with the building.
I think that would be good for.
that would be really nice. the sidewalk where it goes up. And,
Just
yeah,
kind of
that'd be cool.
make things a little more simple.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. It's a little bright, but I think, you know, when we see it, if it's like freaky, we can always talk about,
Uneasy.
yeah.
Any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the proposal of the chalkboard as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Second. So we have a motion to approve as presented. And a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
I feel like doing sure you.
If you want to sing.
I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you're going to the same.
Okay, the next topic I have is a discussion item. It's not for something specific to be approved, but Sherry Dean is here, and if you can
Sure, I can just
come
talk
up.
from here, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. But the background of this is her apartment building has a problem with parking. So they've screwed no parking signs into the shutters there. And we had talked about it, your apartment manager did it, and that's something that I don't believe either of us want, so they're gonna be taken down. But you still have a parking situation problem. So she's seeking guidance from us about what we might recommend to address the parking situation. For the building, there's some signs in the ground that say no parking anytime. How many parking spots do you have there?
We need 10.
10. Okay.
10 parking spots.
And-
The signs have been taken down.
Oh, okay, great. So there's 10 parking spots, and they're for the residents of the apartment building, and the problem that you're having is people from the public are just coming and parking in those parking spots.
Well, yes,
Here, I'll let you
Right
have the
now-
microphone.
thank you.
Right now, we're working on the building, and we do not have as many tenants as we have had in the past. He put that up because people are parking, and the tenants that we have, we're finding that people are coming during the night and parking, and you don't know what they're doing. And we're just finding people that turn around. Maybe the train is coming and they just turn around in a parking lot and actually hit one of the trucks the contractor had. So I am coming to ask your opinion. What we would like to do is we would like to put lines for parking for each tenant that is there, because each one of the tenants pays for their parking space. We have 8 one-bedrooms and 1 townhouse, which has 2 bedrooms. The 1-bedroom, they have 1 parking place. The 2-bedroom has 2 parking places. What we would like to do is to be able to put lines on the parking lot. We've never had to do that before, but we feel like it's a safety measure at this point. Safety for the tenants is what I'm saying. We would like to put the yellow lines. We've measured the lines that are the parking spaces across the street, which are the churches, and we could fit 10 parking spaces there with that. And we would like to be able to put the number of the apartment on the concrete where the parking space is. Also, the thing is, we have no place to put private parking. Our lot ends where the sidewalk to the little strip center begins on one end. Our lot ends on the other end where the bridge is. So we really don't have a space to put a private parking sign unless you can help us. And we're not interested in destroying the appearance of the building, which those signs do. But, you know, we have never been, no one has ever been able to help us figure out a place to put a sign for private parking. My contractor suggested today if we could number the parking places and then put a small sign that said private parking above where the sidewalk is. Yeah, we're open to suggestions.
So, I don't know what y'all think. I live next door to a little apartment complex, and they have their own little lot, but they have lines and they have numbers on them because each apartment is limited, and they don't want one person's guest to get everybody else's.
Exactly.
The other thing, and I think it's in, oh, he's gone. I think it's in some of the town parking, and I know it's in the parking behind Main Street and the Hankins building where Bill's office is, that there's some things that say reserved. So would that be something that they could do, like have lines and then have reserved, you know, 1, reserved 2, reserved whatever, which seems like that gives you a really good indication
I think that would be great.
Of private, and that's, I tried to read the municipal code last night, big fun, when I saw this being on there, and I couldn't find anything about how to manage it. But that's the closest I've seen in other places. We probably want to double check with the town people.
Yes.
In some of the bigger resort areas, you find that they don't use the white and they don't use the bright yellow. They use a real hunter green, and it blends so much more. The stripes are green. It doesn't like blind you. And it just looks so much better with the building. If the town doesn't say, if it's not town property, it doesn't have to be yellow or white, which is part of their regulations. I would do it some color like that so that it really shows up, and it's more Martha Stewart.
It's green, more Martha Stewart. That's
So,
good.
they'll be so rare, you know, it wouldn't be this blinding kind of yellow or white that sometimes you have.
Good question. Is the place of this committee to organize parking, though? I think that our place might be more in signage, and we can help you in some regards, right?
Well, I mean, our place is the nature and the appearance of the historic downtown districts. So.
But I don't know our legal jurisdiction over.
Well, I don't
The
think
street.
she's asking for a legal decision.
Yeah.
She's just asking for things that would look nice.
So first of all, is that town property or is it your property?
It's our property.
Where the parking lot is?
It's our property.
Okay, I thought you had mentioned that your property stopped at the sidewalk.
Where the little strip center is,
Uh-huh.
our property line is there. Okay, like on the sidewalk comes on.
So where
How
the,
far to the road?
yes, so
How far to the road?
20 foot?
I'm not sure about that.
So where the cars park, is that your property or town property?
That's not our
Okay.
property. Yeah, where the cars park is our property.
Yeah, I would recommend lines with reserved and then the number
Reserved? With
Reserved.
the word reserved, okay.
Reserved is a
then-
nice way to say private parking with one word.
That is good. Yeah.
And then I also like the idea of green would complement the building.
Did obviously they have that in
They,
acrylic, I think it is, that they use.
Chad has a good picture of
I
a,
just did a quick little search. He did like a
Do
traditional.
you own the property from that curve all the way to this curve?
They make the
Is that-
signs like that. It looks a little.
And then that's your building over there.
Yes,
So all of that is yours.
right, exactly.
The sad part is that it won't stop
It's
people.
nice, I like it.
It won't stop people from parking there.
Well, that,
Whatnot, so in the sign, if you put up a sign, whether like in the bushes or wherever besides the lines, because you don't want to put like towing enforcement pavement. So if you put up another sign or 2 or 3 of them going down, nice dark, same thing, we would want to put probably something regarding towing enforcement. It's not going to stop people. And Herman and I have a similar problem where we live, but the difference is the town and the street, we don't. So,
well, I was gonna ask if we could put up pylons. The church puts up the pylons, the Christian church on their, with their parking places across the street. When we don't have tenants, and right now we don't have several tenants. It would be, I mean, it may not look great, but, we don't at least have these people coming in our parking lot doing the turnarounds, and that's, I've had people back in my parking place to pull out into onto Fox Street. And Fox Street is so much busier now than it used to be. That,
you can't go by what the church does because they're in a big to-do with the town over those parking places.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so don't use them as.
Oh, don't use them as an example, okay. Well, can we use the pylons?
Yeah, I would try the marking restricting and the reserve and the numbers first and see how things go at Lady Coverage.
Okay. So you think that they can see the green real well? Is it that?
They're gonna ignore whatever's there. I have people that come and sit on my porch.
They can sit on your
From the bar.
Parking signs as well.
Yes,
I think for people turning around, there's gonna be next to nothing.
especially with the train.
That could be done.
If the train's
So
flying.
you're not suggesting pylons, we can't put them?
I don't think that it's our jurisdiction to know the answer to that one, I'm so sorry. I mean, I just don't, like I said, in looking at all the code stuff, I can't find anything about it, but I would think we would want to talk maybe,
I can
I don't
understand.
even know who, either to the building guy or the police guy.
The police.
There's the traffic advisory committee.
Okay.
There is a traffic advisory
Yeah,
committee?
Jonesborough has a
Well,
traffic.
they wouldn't have a regulatory
No.
authority. The town would,
Okay,
if
overall,
there's
the town
something to
would.
prevent what you want to do, the town would be the
Yeah.
people to talk to. And Kevin was here earlier, the building inspector,
Yeah.
but this is more than a building. Our primary concern here is the building and the appearance of the building and the area. So,
So
but
if you can just tell me who to talk to.
it's a careful
Police,
balance.
chief of police,
I
Matt
think
Rice.
Major Higgins would be the person I would go.
I'd go to Matt Rice, he's the chief of police.
Okay.
Or the chief
And-
of police, just get you the
Matt.
map.
Rice.
And what we're doing tonight is just, are there some historically appropriate ways to address this? And I've heard some suggestions. And I can understand you need to block off the spaces when people aren't using them, whether you use a cone or something, maybe something that's more attractive that you would put in the parking spot, a brown planter or
As many times as
something, I'm not sure.
EMS has to go to your complex,
Yeah.
they take up 4 or 5 parking places. I've watched them.
I do want to say, we have a black box on our building for the meds. That only the fire chief has the key to that black box, and he's supposed to let the medical teams know. And you're right, we've had so many elderly people, we've had a lot of medical team calls, but that is a new thing. I didn't know about that until this past year. But thank you for your suggestions. I really appreciate them all.
Okay, so this wasn't going to be a motion for any item tonight for this particular, this is more to get some ideas and feedback. So it sounds like, I don't think there's any issue with you painting lines on your parking spaces. You probably want to check with the town just to make sure, but it's your parking lot and across the street has lines. You should be able to put lines on your parking spots. And to put the message out that people can't park there, that's, if you don't have signs screwed to your building, that's a big improvement. But I know that you want to somehow get that message out in front of everyone, don't park here. And you can number the spots. I know I've seen apartment buildings around town have done that. Academy Hill has numbers above our spots. They're covered parking.
And another person you can talk to is Jim Wheeler, because when I needed signs, the town administrator advised me to talk to Jim Wheeler. And he's the town attorney, and he will tell you how it needs to be worded.
Okay. I agree. That's great.
It could say private parking violators will be towed, and then
See, we just don't have a place for those signs. That's the only part. Problem.
Tow truck,
Yeah,
makes money off of it.
if you tow one or two times, word will get around.
Really?
Yes. Absolutely.
Did you have to get a sign, Marcy, to tell people not
I'm
to
still
sign
waiting.
up?
Is Tom still here? I'm still waiting for Tom to get my sign.
Very much.
You remember my,
maybe at the edge of the parking spaces.
do that?
You can put a sign out at the
Yeah,
edge,
he's got 'em.
but that, you might need to talk to the town about that.
Well, what does it say?
Rather than up
Exactly.
against the building.
Private residence.
Even if I could put reserved parking or something
They should be
on
near
the street, yeah, close to the street, that would be nice.
One day there were two mothers.
And I'm not positive if you can legally tow someone. That's something you'd want to check into before you do that.
I think the contractor wanted to scare people, really.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next items on the agenda, I've listed some future items. Those aren't anything to be discussed tonight. I just wanted to get them on paper so you know what's in the works. I had sent some emails to zoning commission members. One, I met with the owner of 128 Boone Street, and sometimes it's last minute. I send out an email the day before and say I'm going to meet with them. Would somebody like to join me? Once we kind of divide our duties a little bit later, again, that's something we're putting off until May, to where each historic zoning commission member will have like a defined area, and that'll be like your area of responsibility. And then when we meet with someone, you can meet with them, I can join you, or two members could go out. And just kind of to get everyone familiar with the process and involved in meeting with the owners who have a request. And the same thing, if we're going to at some point talk to the business owners about a plastic sandwich board isn't allowed, maybe we would have two commission members go together and just have a friendly conversation together. But, so that's, again, something we'll talk about in May. Okay, the next item is we have one unfilled zoning commission position. It's the secretary. And what the secretary's duties have consisted of for the past few years is just completing these forms that just list what the person has requested, and then whether we approved it or whether we accepted with changes or whether we disapproved it, and then we would have them sign it, and then we'd give them a copy. So we have an example of the form here if you wanted to see it, but currently that's the only duty that the secretary has, because you're keeping track of the minutes. So you don't have to do the minutes. So I wanted to see if we had a volunteer to be fill the secretary position. At the last meeting, Nita filled the vice chair position. You want to take that on? Okay. So we'll nominate Rebecca as secretary.
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion approved. Thank you. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome, guys.
That's a help now. Thanks. Okay, the next meeting's April 10th. It'll be a regular meeting at Town Hall. And the final training session will be April 24th back here at the Visitor Center. And I have the demolition by neglect item 208 West Woodrow Avenue. It's on the future item list, so we'll be talking about that one at a future meeting. So we have commissioner comments also. Any commissioner comments before we wrap up?
I have one comment that will segue into the next thing. I wanted to publicly commend Brandy on the minutes from the last meeting. They were lovely and very thorough and awfully nice.
That's great.
I had one.
Yes, go ahead.
I've seen pictures in the past near my property at the entrance from the west side to the historic zoning district that there used to be a welcome sign to Jonesborough Historic District, and that's no longer there. There was road work done before I moved here. I believe that's why it was changed. I'm just curious, what would be the avenue to establish something like that again there?
I think the same thing is true on the west side of the Main Street. It used to be there. I think it's I think that's sidewalk.
I wonder if they.
Yeah, I think that would be nice, but that would be something the town would have to discuss, the mayor and board of aldermen.
Storing somewhere and just never putting it back up. Do you know who would?
What's that?
I'm sorry.
Just when they did the construction, I would think that they would have not just bashed the signs down, but would have taken them out and maybe put them somewhere and just didn't think to put them back.
I don't recall ever seeing them. I've been here since like 6-7 years now.
Yeah, well,
There used to always.
because I know there's
On-
little sign.
on West Main?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
a little
okay.
sign. There's a little sign right. Yeah, there's one on Second. There's one on College.
Oh,
Because it just says "Welcome to this sort of area."
oh, it's just the small sign. Okay,
It's
yeah.
little ones.
Okay, I thought you were talking about a big monument.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's one on little
No,
ones.
it's bigger.
Yeah.
It was a bigger one.
Yeah, it was wood. It was a
Okay.
wooden sign.
There's one on.
It was there the last time we came from 81.
That
Okay.
says. Who do we ask? Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk to probably Glenn Rosenoff, talk to the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can ask Glenn. Craig. Yes.
When we were discussing the parking lot stripes, I'm sorry, Bill had already left, because Bill had always had a rule, there were no lines, painted lines on the streets in Jonesborough. Well, we all know what the traffic is like in Jonesborough now. We still need to clarify that with Bill and ask him if that's written down anywhere, because I looked out the window the other day, and starting at the railroad track in front of my house, going up Fox and around Woodrow to Cherokee is the brightest yellow dividing line down the middle of the road. When I was discussing it with Bill, I said, it's really needed up there. It's like a shooting gallery with cars, and cars coming from Main Street up Fox, they hit the railroad track, and when they come across, they're on the sidewalk because they don't know where to go. And my thought too on it being so bright and yellow is that in 3 months it's not going to be bright and yellow. But that is something we need to clarify, because otherwise one day there'll be a line right down Main Street. But Bill never wanted a line down Main Street or up in front of,
Well, if we don't want that as a historic zoning commission, we probably need to make sure the town's aware of that.
right,
If that's what
exactly.
we agree with,
Mm-hmm.
we probably have to ask everyone.
Yeah.
Boone has, what does Boone have? Does it have a stripe?
Boone has
Well, at one time they had a red, white, and blue stripe.
Yeah.
And even tonight, Bill said, oh, we don't want to stripe up Boone Street. So we need to find out about that.
I did talk to Bill, and he was okay with parking spots, being defined with stripes and having some number for Fox Street. As far as dividing the road, I don't know. So,
Are you ready?
I think that's it. What's that?
Do we have other topics, I guess?
Okay, we had a compliment on the minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes.
Do we have a second? Michael? Okay, all in favor? And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And the rest of you get to stay.